Are any of these new drugstore launches actually worth the hype they're getting on social media? You're about to find out. Because for the past several months, I have been testing all of them out and capturing tons of footage along the way, including swatches, application, and wear tests. And as always, writing detailed notes about every aspect of each one of these products to help you figure out what is actually worth your money and what is not. Because even the drugstore isn't cheap these days. And I hope you guys don't mind, but I am going to be filming this video with a special guest. Please hold. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna put him down because he just fell asleep and these are bright lights in front of me, but I couldn't film a video without at least showing you his face. This is Finn, Elsie's new little brother. I'll definitely do a life update, get ready with me in the next couple of videos, but it would have felt wrong to film an entire video with a new baby secretly asleep on my lap without showing you guys first. Starting off with skincare, there have been several new drugstore sunscreen launches lately, and I'm still working through a handful of them, but I wanted to make sure to test out the ones that I felt you guys would be most interested in first. So the first of those is from The Ordinary. They have officially come out with an untinted sunscreen. This is called their UV Filters SPF 45 Serum. So this claims to be a lightweight hydrating serum with no white cast, and they achieve that by using chemical sunscreen filters. So the active ingredients are octocrylene, homosalate, octisalate, and avobenzone. Other noteworthy ingredients worth calling out include carnosine, biosaccharide gum 2, phospholipids, sphingolipids, and the fact that it's fragrance and essential oil free. And this one is not water resistant, so just be mindful of that if this is one you decide to pick up and test out. I feel like we've had several sunscreen launches lately that have serum somewhere in the name. Like the brand wants us to think that that sunscreen is so light, so silky, so elegant that it feels like a serum. And that's amazing if it actually feels that way, but I feel like in a lot of instances it doesn't, and that's definitely the case here. To me, this doesn't feel like a serum at all. It just feels like a liquidy lotion. And it's not super greasy, but it definitely does feel a little oily to me, just kind of that classic sunscreen texture. So I would say that it's more like mid-weight. It's definitely not heavy, but I also don't think that this is the lightest weight sunscreen I've ever tried, given how many truly lightweight sunscreens I've tested out. But I have no issues applying this. I'm able to blend this seamlessly into my skin because it has great slip for that, and it dries down to feel like a light moisturizer that's semi-tacky with a very glowy finish. Because it has that slightly tacky dry down, it made for a really nice makeup primer for me, but outside of that, as a sunscreen by itself, I wouldn't say that there's anything amazing about this. It's like good, but not outstanding. To me, if you are launching a $19 sunscreen in 2025, I get excited that you're going to be offering us something that we don't already have at this price point, but I feel like this is just more of what we already have, which definitely doesn't make it bad. Again, like I said, I think that it's good. It's just not something that stands out to me as this remarkable new sunscreen launch. Another sunscreen that launched right around that price point is the Versed Good Defense Daily Sunscreen with SPF 50. This claims to be a gel sunscreen with a dewy, glowy finish that perks up the skin. It's also a chemical sunscreen. The active ingredients are avobenzone, homosalate, and octisalate, and inactive ingredient highlights include betaine, Shoria stenoptera seed butter, ceramide NP, amino acids, PCA, sodium PCA, bisabolol, glycolipids, and licorice root. It's also fragrance and essential oil free, and this one is not water resistant either. The texture of this sunscreen absolutely matches up to what Versed claims about it. It's a lightweight gel cream that I really love the feel of when I'm applying it. It just feels light, hydrating, moisturizing, and refreshing. Because of that, it dries down to feel like a very light moisturizer that is also a little bit tacky and works great as a makeup primer. I will say that this looks very shiny on my skin immediately after I apply it. So the first time I put it on, I was like, oh my God, this is not gonna work. But I find that that tones down quite a bit when I give this time to just like fully settle into my skin. So after that, I would say I'm left with just a very dewy finish and not a super shiny one. So I feel like this is one that you would absolutely love if you have dry skin and you want that dewy glow boost, but in a super lightweight hydrating format, or as a glowy makeup primer underneath some sort of foundation, complexion product, powder that's a little bit more matte, or maybe glowy if you just want to enhance that glow even more. So while this is obviously not going to be everybody's new favorite because of that very dewy finish, like if you're really, really oily, you feel like you just look greasy no matter what by end of day, this probably is not going to be for you. However, for a sunscreen at this price point, like compared to The Ordinary, I do think that this is much more impressive. It's a texture that makes me feel excited because we don't see a lot of this at the drugstore. So this is one that I would definitely recommend if you are looking for that kind of texture with that kind of finish. It's really beautiful. And the last new untinted sunscreen I tried is the BYOMA Ultralight Face Fluid with SPF 50. This claims to be an ultra lightweight, non-greasy fluid. It's also a chemical sunscreen. The active ingredients are avobenzone, homosalate, octisalate, and octocrylene. And the inactive ingredients worth highlighting include vitamin E, ethyl ferulate, bisabolol, hyaluronic acid, aloe leaf juice, astaxanthin, ceramide NP, cholesterol, beta-glucan, oleic acid, phospholipids, glycolipids, and it's fragrance and essential oil free, and also not water resistant. The texture of this one is completely different from both the Ordinary and Versed. This is like a super fluid liquidy lotion that is on the lighter side but feels partly milky and partly like a facial oil. So while it feels moisturizing, it definitely feels oily while I'm applying it, and it also kind of just feels like I have a light layer of oil sitting on my face for about 10 minutes after I've applied. But after that, it does seem to kind of go away once it's fully dried down, so it's not like the entire time I wear this I feel like I have an oil film on my skin, or this would be a huge no for me. It kind of just settles to eventually feel like a lighter moisturizer to the touch with a luminous dewy finish. This is one that looks really nice under makeup at first, but with wear, it just doesn't seem to mesh the best with it. I'm not sure if it's because of that like more oily texture or what, but really anything I put on top of it seems to go patchy and break up as the day goes on. And I will say that this is really the only one out of the three that I noticed eye irritation with, but it wasn't anything extreme. It wasn't like I had severe stinging or really drippy eyes, which has happened to me with some sunscreens before. So if you have super sensitive eyes, this may not work for you, but something that was like tolerable enough for me where if I loved it, I loved the texture, how it looked, I would have put up with it. But in this case, I'm like, I don't think I quite do. I feel like this is really going to be best suited for those of you that either have dry skin or really love the feel of applying a facial oil. It's just that those things don't really apply to me. You guys know that I have oilier skin, so I've just never been obsessed with the feel of putting oil all over my face, but I can totally understand that some people really do love a good facial oil. So not for me personally, but definitely something that is different from a lot of options at the drugstore that are really thick and pasty and creamy. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit oily, a little bit like a facial milk, super liquidy, you might love it. Moving on from untinted, there are two new tinted sunscreens that I wanted to review. The first of which I talked about in my best drugstore skincare video because it basically immediately became a favorite for me. I was that impressed. It is the Versed Multi-Serum Skin Tint with SPF 40. This claims to be a nourishing, skin perfecting tint with a skin-like finish, and this is a mineral sunscreen, so the active sunscreen filter is zinc oxide. Inactive ingredient highlights include kakadu plum extract, jojoba esters, hyaluronic acid, iron oxides, and this is fragrance and essential oil free and not water resistant. This is available in 14 shades, which was super exciting to see from a drugstore brand because most drugstore tinted sunscreens are only available in 1 to maybe 4 shades if we're lucky. Well, except for the one we're going to talk about next, which launched after the fact. This is another sunscreen that claims to be a serum, but does not feel serum-like at all to me. The texture of this is very creamy, but it's not something that's overly thick or heavy. It just kind of feels like a moisturizer to me, which I enjoy the feel of, and it definitely dries down to feel lightweight. If I apply this with my fingers, I do have to spend a little bit more time blending it to make sure that everything is seamless and not patchy because it does have a bit more coverage than a lot of other tinted sunscreens. However, it still is something that I can get to look really nice with my fingers, and with a sponge, it blends beautifully without issues. I would say that this starts off light but can be built up to have medium coverage pretty easily, and it's something that has a natural to naturally glowy finish without powder and a satin to satin matte finish with powder on me. I really love how this looks on my skin right after I apply it, and I continue to love it as the day goes on with a full day of wear because it doesn't get greasy on me. Overall, very impressed with this. So good, and something that after trying several times, I was like, this is gonna be the new best drugstore tinted sunscreen, hands down. But right after I posted that, e.l.f. entered the chat with their tinted sunscreen, which is called the e.l.f. Halo Glow Skin Tint with SPF 50. This is said to be a hydrating, serum-like skin tint with a natural dewy finish, and it's also a mineral sunscreen. The main active ingredient is zinc oxide. Inactive highlights include niacinamide, bisabolol, allantoin. It's fragrance and essential oil free, and this one is water resistant for up to 80 minutes. This is available in 18 shades. So at first I was like, oh my god, this is officially the most inclusive tinted sunscreen we have at the drugstore. This is amazing. Every other brand, take note. Until I saw Gloria's review of this on TikTok. She was testing out the deepest shade that they have to offer, and it really oxidized and turned quite orange on her. And the lipstick lesbians also over on Instagram posted a video talking about why that happens with a formula like this and why right when they saw this launch, they knew that this was going to be an issue. So I'm going to include both Gloria's video and the lipstick lesbians video in my description box below if you would like to watch those. Not if, you should. I highly recommend it just to learn more about that issue. It's really frustrating to see something like this launch with 18 shades and be like, oh my god, finally we're seeing more inclusivity at the drugstore, for that to then happen. I picked up 2 shades. The first is 1 fair neutral and the second is 4 light neutral. Fair neutral is definitely too light for my skin tone, and I was worried that 4 neutral was going to be a bit too deep, but it actually seems to be a pretty good match. Similar to the Verse tinted sunscreen, I would also say that this feels creamy instead of serum. It's just that this one is significantly more liquidy and almost a little bit more wet too. Like Verse is obviously not dry, but just compared to this, I do think it's a little drier, maybe a little bit more whipped and moussey while still being creamy, whereas this one is quite fluid, liquidy, a little more wet, still creamy. Hopefully that makes sense. Sometimes describing textures of things and like how they compare to other textures is more complicated than it needs to be. I feel like I have the same experience applying this with my fingers that I do Verse, where I just have to work a bit more with it, work a little bit longer to make sure that it looks seamless, because it does have quite a bit of coverage, especially for a product like this that doesn't really claim to. Like this just claims to have light buildable coverage, so I was expecting this to be something that is lighter in coverage. Shocking, I know. I would say that this is more like medium to medium / full. It's not all the way up to full coverage. You can still see my moles through it, but quite a bit of coverage and more than I was expecting for sure. This has a dewy finish before I set it with powder and a glowy finish after. And while this is definitely glowier than Versed and my oils start to come through a bit more, it still isn't something that gets greasy on me. I was really worried about that just because it's Halo Glow. I thought it was going to be super dewy, end up looking shiny by end of day, but it doesn't. I actually think that this holds up really well and is just as impressive as the Verse tinted sunscreen in terms of how it feels, how it looks, how it wears, just obviously in a more glowy format. But the only thing that I'm not sure about with this is whether or not it's causing me to break out. I have been breaking out around my chin quite a bit over the past couple of weeks just in wearing this for the past few weeks consistently. However, I've also been kind of stressed. I've had some last minute work travel. I always break out when I travel, so it could be that. So I think I'm just gonna pause on wearing this until I don't feel any new breakouts emerging, because I literally felt one this morning as I was putting my makeup on. And then I'll test this out again in a little bit to see if this is the culprit or if it was just a coincidence. Otherwise, it is very beautiful if you're able to find a shade that works for you. The last 2 skincare launches for this video are both lip sunscreens. So let's start off with the first of the 2, which is the Prequel Lip Visor Sunscreen with Broad Spectrum SPF 30. This is described as a daily protective lip balm that locks in moisture, soothes, and hydrates while absorbing UV rays to shield skin. It is a chemical sunscreen. The active ingredients are avobenzone and octinoxate, which, if you are somebody that uses a lot of lip sunscreens, is something that makes you a little bit skeptical to test out, because you can more often than not end up with a really intense chemical aftertaste when using a lip sunscreen with chemical filters. But obviously I was going to test it out for you guys either way. And active highlights include petrolatum, shea butter, sunflower seed oil, and bisabolol. They launched this in 2 different shades, or I guess just one, because the first is clear and completely untinted. The second is called Rose Dust, and it's a mid-toned warm rose shade with buildable levels of pigment. This is quite thick and stiff at first, both when you're squeezing it out of the tube and then initially rubbing it on your lips, but it pretty quickly melts down into something that I would say is like a moderately slippy gel that is in between thin and thick. I do notice that it kind of slides into my mouth, which I really don't love with this sunscreen specifically because of how minty it is. It has a very intensely minty smell and taste. The first time I applied this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like mouthwash and a lip balm. And it's just not a sweet mint. Like, it's just pure mint with no sweetness, which I think just makes it like even harder for me to stomach personally. Like, this is like the yucky dentist mint toothpaste. You know what I'm talking about? But the plus side to that is that it's strong enough to not give any sort of chemical aftertaste. Even in wearing this for extended periods of time, I don't get any sort of chemical taste in my mouth, which is something that I feel like often happens. I'll get like a strong initial flavor and then it fades and just tastes like chemicals. Not the case with this. I really don't get any sort of chemical taste. I do get a bit of a cooling, burning sensation with it though, which is to be expected with something that is that intensely minty. Like the pigment in the tinted shade, both of these have buildable levels of shine. So with a few layers, you can build these up to be quite shiny. And then in doing so, you go from like sheer to more medium pigment with the shade Rose Dust. So while this is not a shade that I love for my skin tone personally, I do really like the amount of shine. I think that it feels good at first, aside from the burning and tingling, but like the actual texture of it feels good. It's just with wear that I start to have issue. It almost starts to go a little bit grainy and kind of like lose the smoothness that it has when I first apply it. So while it definitely lasts long enough and isn't something that like fades super quickly, it's just not something that I love the feel of as it continues to wear and with that lasting time. And it's definitely not as moisturizing or hydrating as it claims to be, likely just because it's irritating my lips quite a bit when I first apply it because of that mint. So unfortunately, this is the first Prequel launch in a while that I just have not been obsessed with. I feel like they have launched such incredible products over the past couple of years. So I had really high hopes for these, but they're just not quite up to that same standard. So not something that I'm personally going to continue to use, but if you really like a minty lip, if that is something that is a win for you because it doesn't have that chemically taste, then maybe you'll really love these, but they're just not for me. The other lip sunscreen I picked up is from Naked Sundays. This is their Pout Screen Plumping Lip Treatment with SPF 50. This is described as a lightweight, non-sticky lip treatment that deeply hydrates and protects your lips with an added shimmery glow. Active ingredients are all chemical filters, including avobenzone, homosalate, octisalate, and octocrylene, and an active highlights include coconut oil, jojoba seed oil, and squalane. This is available in 2 shades. I picked up the shade Marshmallow, which is a sheer bright peachy pink that I actually don't really notice any shimmer with at all. I know that they said that this is supposed to have a shimmery glow, but I just get more of like a shiny lip gloss glow instead of shimmer. This has a gel texture that I would also describe as in between thin and thick, but I do think it's a little bit thicker than Prequel for me once it actually settles down. It has a tiny bit of tack and it's a little bit stiffer than Prequel, but it is still something that slips into my mouth, which is a huge problem with this one because it initially tastes like artificial watermelon, but very quickly fades to have that classic chemical lip sunscreen taste, and it's pretty noticeable. I do really love the high shine that I get with this, but that is definitely not enough to outweigh the taste. This is one of those that I felt like just could not fade fast enough for me. Like I just got to the point where I had to wipe this off because I was like, this is gross. But while I had it on, I would say that it was like average in terms of moisture, not something that's incredibly moisturizing, which is good because I don't need any more reason to use this. Moving on to makeup, I have 2 primers to review, and the first is the Maybelline Poreless Jelly Primer. This is formulated with 2% niacinamide, a water break gel, and pore minimizing polymers. It's supposed to have a water jelly technology that leaves a weightless, fresh feel and delivers a non-greasy, instant skin-like blur without silicones. So the ingredient highlight is a 2% niacinamide, and this one is fragrance and essential oil free. The texture of this is so interesting. It's kind of like a hybrid between what you would think of for like a standard jelly primer and then also what you would think of for a silicone primer. It's like that combined, which is also interesting given the fact that this does not contain silicones. And it also kind of feels like cooling and refreshing as I'm applying it, which is a nice touch. I was expecting to see an immediate blurring effect when I applied this, and I felt like I couldn't see any difference on my skin. The first time that I wore this, I applied the Milk Hydro Grip Skin Tint on top of it, and I felt like there really was no difference between how my skin looked with this under it and without, with that skin tint on. So I decided to do a split face test with it to see if I do no primer on one side and this primer on the other with the exact same skin tint on the same day, if I would see, you know, an improvement there. And I don't feel like I did. I literally feel like I see no difference between the sides. Like, is it just me or does this not look identical? So unsurprisingly, I also saw no difference with the wear test. I mean, I guess that's a plus because it's not like it broke down my makeup, but other than that, I feel like this did a whole lot of nothing for me. The second primer I tested is also from Maybelline, and this is their Grippy Serum Primer. This claims to be ultra blendable with serum to grip technology after just 20 seconds with a fresh serum texture that transforms into a sticky feel that grips makeup for up to 24 hours and gives skin a fresh, plumped look. It also contains 2% niacinamide, ceramide in addition to panthenol and being fragrance and essential oil free. This has a thick serum-like texture that initially feels hydrating and then starts to transform into that sticky kind of classic grippy primer feel. I feel like it's a little bit stickier than the Milk Hydro Grip Primer. That one is one where like I don't even have to wash my hands after. There's just no sticky residue on my fingers. But like for point of comparison, the NYX Glue Primer, that one is so sticky that I have to wash my hands. Otherwise, like everything is sticking as I'm grabbing it after I use it. This one from Maybelline is somewhere in between. And this definitely adds some juicy glow to my skin. I can see that even before I apply makeup, but unfortunately that translates into a pretty shiny look for me by the end of the day. I also noticed that my makeup would kind of just start to break down and go patchy in areas when I had this on. So overall, I feel like that combined with the greasy finish just made my makeup look worse than it normally does. So this just didn't work for me across the board, which I'm so confused about because everybody else seems to be obsessed with this. Like, I don't think I've heard a single complaint about this. So I don't know why this one just does not work with my skin, but it doesn't. Next is a new concealer from Versed. They actually launched a ton of new makeup items. It wasn't just that tinted sunscreen. So they had that, the concealer, and then several other products as well, a couple of which we'll touch on in this video. This is their Skin Solution Serum Concealer, which is supposed to be a weightless concealer that feels like a hydrating serum. Again, and gently blurs for a smooth skin-like finish. The ingredient highlights in this include ethylascorbic acid, caffeine, kojic acid, hyaluronic acid, and squalane, and it's available in 14 shades. I picked up the shades 3P, which is a light peach, and 4W, which is described as a light warm, but I do feel like there's a pretty big jump between 3P and 4W. Like 3P is too light for me, 4W is too dark, so mixing them together seems to give me a much better match. Again, I don't agree that this feels like a serum, but it is something that feels lightweight. It's a light cream texture that has the perfect amount of slip for easy blending. It's not too slippery, it's not too stiff, it's just right. And I'm able to build this up to have medium coverage with just like a fresh natural finish under my eyes, so I really like the look of this at first. With where I don't notice any major issues, like no heavy creasing, it's not something that's like melting or breaking up crazy by end of day. Definitely some line settling, but I would say like pretty standard with a lot of other concealers that I try. If anything, I think the biggest thing I noticed about it by end of day is just that it maybe looks a little bit dry, but that's mostly just when I'm looking really up close and trying to nitpick. I think from a normal distance, I don't know that I would notice that. I would say that this is another new launch that's like good, but not super amazing. I do think that there are other drugstore concealers that I prefer to this. I am actually almost done preparing my best drugstore makeup video. I don't know when that one's gonna go up. We had to kind of take a pause on that series for me to do Prime Day and then new launches, and then I need to do my life update, get ready with me. So it might be a few more videos until we get back into that series, but I will finish that up and share my favorite drugstore concealers. This won't be featured in that, but I think it's good. It's just not, yeah, outstanding. L'Oreal launched a new setting powder. This is called the Infallible Blurfection Loose Setting Powder that is supposed to instantly brighten and blur for up to 24 hours. They have 4 shades and I picked up the shade Translucent Light. I didn't write anything down for like the texture or feel of this because I feel like there's nothing to note. Like it just feels like a powder, but it absolutely lives up to its claims of being blurring. I would say that this has a blurred matte finish that on my skin doesn't look dry, doesn't look powdery, doesn't look overly makeup-y. It just sets everything really nicely and then keeps my makeup in place all day long. It really does wear amazingly well and I don't get even a little bit shiny when I wear this. I will say that because of how matte this is and because of how well it controls oils, I do feel like my skin can feel a little dry and tight at the end of the day if I don't moisturize a bit more. So like I've told you guys before, I often will skip moisturizer if I am using a sunscreen that feels moisturizing enough, but sometimes I feel like even that is not quite enough for this powder. So certainly not one that you're going to be obsessed with if you have dry skin, but overall I am super impressed with this. It is absolutely one of the best drugstore powders I have ever tried. Moving on to bronzer, blush, and highlight. The first is a combination of the first two. This is a bronzer and blush stick. It's the Physicians Formula Butter Go and Glow. No, switch. Glow and Go stick. This is supposed to have a buttery smooth formula and come in 2 complementary shades for cheeks, eyes, and lips. Oh, I didn't apply this on my eyes or lips. I don't think these shades would work well for me for that. They have 4 shades and I have the shade Beachy Pink, which is the lightest shade combination that they offer. I think that the bronzer shade is really well balanced. It's something that's like a lighter brown that's not too warm, not too cool, not orangey. But the blush is something that I'm not a huge fan of on my complexion. It's like a bright, cool toned pastel pink, which is exactly why I don't really love dual-ended products like this. I feel like it's pretty hard for me to find one that has 2 shades that I really love and then I end up wasting half of it. When swatching this, it has a rich buttery texture that has great slip without being greasy, but it definitely does start to transform into something that's a little bit drier and a little bit more powdery as you blend, which is something that I typically love in a bronzer or blush stick like this because I feel like it just prevents it from feeling like wet and heavy on the skin. This has buildable pigment while still being on the lighter side. You can still definitely see my skin through it. You're not going to get like full color coverage or pigment with this if that's something you're interested in. It's more like sheer to light / medium. And it has a naturally glowy finish that at first by itself looks really pretty, but the issue that I've noticed with this is if I try to apply or blend anything on top of this, like powder let's say, it starts to break up and go patchy. I thought at first maybe it was just a powder issue and it just would sit better without, but I noticed that it also happened when I tried to blend this blush in this stick on top of this bronzer. Rebuilding it on top of powder after definitely helped with that a little bit. I think from a normal like talking distance in person, it doesn't look bad, but up close it does still definitely look a little patchy, which seemed to just get worse for me as the day went on. I feel like by the end of the day it just looked kind of splotchy. The blush did seem to hold up a little bit better than the bronzer, but since I don't even like the color, and again because this is dual-ended, I'm like it doesn't make sense for me to keep this. I definitely think that there are better options for both cream bronzers and blushes at the drugstore. NYX launched a new product in their Buttermelt collection. This is their Buttermelt Highlight, which is supposed to melt and glide into the skin like butter. It's available in 8 shades and I picked up the shade Bright and Butter, which is a light champagne. This has a really nice, soft, kind of like creamy powder texture to the touch, but I just don't love the way that this looks. From a distance, I think it's fine, but up close, it just looks kind of dry and glittery. It definitely doesn't have that soft diffused glow that something like the Essence Pure Nude Highlight has, or that like juicy glass-like shine like the L'Oreal Lumi Lait Glass Sticks. So pass. Moving on to eyes, I have 2 different mascaras. The first is from Revlon. This is their ColorStay Full-Time Mascara. This is supposed to have a flexible formula that features a double shield technology to shield lashes against oil, sweat, and tears. And the wand has that slight curve to it. The underside that is not curved is pretty flat, and I do think that the bristles are a little bit too short. It would definitely perform better if they were longer because the formula itself is really nice. I feel like it's not too dry, it's not too wet, it's not too thin, it's not too thick, but I think just because the wand doesn't separate the best, it starts to clump a little bit as I layer it. So the length is good, the volume is good, but the separation is definitely what needs the most work. When I use this, I do have to go in with something like a tweezers to separate my lashes. But the one thing I forgot to mention is that I got this in the shade Natural Brown, and this is actually a true brown. I really love the color. That is something that I struggle with brown mascaras. I feel like a lot of them claim to be brown, yet they end up looking black on my lashes, and this is a true brown. And this one wears well for me, no issues with flaking or smudging. So overall, I think it's good. I just don't think it's something I'm going to keep because of the fact that it's a bit clumpy. If this had a different wand, I feel like this would be top tier. And next is the highly raved about Maybelline Colossal Bubble Mascara. This one is supposed to give buildable inflated volume with sleek separation, and it has a completely different wand. Instead of those plastic harder bristles, they're very soft, which I do think is a little bit of a messy wand with this formula, but certainly not the messiest I've tried. I do feel like this has a bit more of a lightweight formula compared to a lot of other mascaras, like almost a little bit airier when you're applying it versus something that feels really wet and heavy. But in saying that, it's not too dry or thin, which I just really don't like in a mascara. I feel like that makes it difficult to build. This is not like that at all. This gives me great length and really good volume, but it's not the same kind of volume as Revlon. I feel like this is just kind of like a fluffier, airier formula, which could either be a pro for you or a con. Separation is also what could use some work here. I feel like one eye actually looks really nicely separated and the other doesn't, but it definitely separates better than Revlon and just gives me a bit more of a feathery look. Where this starts to not quite hold up for me against my favorites is with wear. I don't think it holds curl quite as well as my favorites, and it definitely does smudge a little bit. I tried this several times with different concealers and different powders under my eyes, wondering if maybe it was just like the way it was meshing with a certain concealer, but it just seems to be this formula. It's not the worst smudging I've ever seen, but it does happen to me every time, and actually within the first few hours of me wearing it, which is enough to make me not want to reach for this because my absolute favorite mascaras don't do that for me. All right, the rest of this video is lip products. products, my absolute favorite category. So let's buckle up because we got a lot of them to get through. The first is the Maybelline Lifter Glaze Lip Balm, which is supposed to be a hydrating lip oil balm that delivers lips so smooth and glowy, they're glazed. Ingredient highlights include squalane, shea butter, jojoba oil, hyaluronic acid, and acerola cherry extract. This is available in 10 buildable shades, and I picked up the shade Berry Haze, which I would say is a true mauve with sheer to medium levels of pigment. This has a subtle, sweet, minty scent that gives me like maybe the teeniest bit of a cooling sensation at first, but fades really quickly. And I actually quite like the smell. Like for someone who's really particular about mint and more often than not doesn't love it, this has just like the perfect amount of sweetness to it. It's really nice. What's not as nice is the texture. It's not bad. It's just nothing amazing. This honestly just feels like a slightly oilier version of a standard lipstick to me. It actually feels nice when I'm swiping it on my lips, but after the fact, when I rub my lips together, when it's just sitting there, it's just nothing special. It's on the thinner side and it's definitely not particularly soft or cushy. I think I was just expecting this to have an amazing texture based on the way it was marketed, and I don't feel that it does. I do really like the way that this looks though. I would say that it's sheer and shiny with one layer up to moderately glossy with medium levels of pigment if I build it up with a few layers. I mean, I do really think this looks cute, but obviously I'm impartial to shades like this. Partial is what I mean, not impartial. I am not impartial to shades like this. And the color actually lasts really well, but the shine fades, so I don't know. This is one of those products where I'm like, this is what you came out with? This is what you launched? It's not awful. It just could be a lot better. Next is the CoverGirl Clean Fresh Yummy Blur Lipstick, which claims to be a cushiony, pillow soft matte lip color that instantly smooths and creates a diffused blurred look on the lips. It's supposed to have a conditioning oil complex, a soft focus gradient look, be ultra blendable with soft silky glide, smell deliciously yummy with fresh pear or sweet pomegranate. And the reason why I read all of that off is because I agree with basically none of that. Like, is this the product you were talking about? I really don't get that. Ingredient highlights include squalane, pomegranate seed oil, grapeseed oil, and coconut oil. It comes in 8 shades, and I picked up the shade Into the Blur, which is a mauvey pink. I feel like this color just looks deeper than I was expecting it to based on the photos I was seeing. Like, I feel like it looks a little lighter online. And the texture of this, I would say, is quite thin. It's dry. It's not super soft or smooth. Like, especially when I rub my lips together, I'm like, I thought this was supposed to be pillowy and cushiony and have a silky soft glide. This is like the opposite of that to me. And it's not like it makes my lips feel drier than anything I've tried before. Like I think the 2012, what year did liquid lipsticks pop off in? Was it 2012? No, might have been, it was after that. Maybe like 2014. Those liquid lipsticks certainly made my lips feel drier than this. But given that this claims to be silky and moisturizing, it just really fell flat for me there. And it definitely has that kind of like blurred soft matte finish, but that does not translate into blurred lip lines for me. I feel like this really emphasizes my lip lines because of how dry it is. It lasts really well, so I'll give it that. Oh, what I can't give it, I completely forgot to say this, the absolute worst part about this is the smell / taste. It's like floral perfume. I mean, it actually smells nice when I'm sniffing it, but not on my lips when I'm tasting that. It's just gross. Not a fan of this at all. Another blurred matte lip product that launched is from Versed. This is their Cashmere Colors Smoothing Lip Blush, which is supposed to be a hydrating balm that gives you a touch of color and a smoothing soft matte finish. Ingredient highlights are shea butter, you guys, I say this wrong every single time. Camellia oil, not camellia, like I always say, and jojoba oil. This is available in 5 shades, and I have the shade Natural Pink, which I think looks nothing like the photos online. It's actually more of like a deep fuchsia pink in person, but I think that this is honestly beautiful because of how sheer it is. It's very wearable. Like, I really love how this looks. I just don't love how it feels. It's definitely not hydrating like it claims to be. I would say similar to CoverGirl. It's something that's dry, it's thin, it's not super smooth. It's maybe just a little bit more lightweight than CoverGirl, but again, like same kind of thing. The plus is that this one doesn't have a smell or taste. Also similar to CoverGirl, you get that like blurred matte finish, but I actually think that the finish of this looks much prettier. I feel like it's just a bit softer and more diffused than CoverGirl. So I really wish I liked the way that this felt better. I think when I put a gloss on top, that really helps because that's obviously going to add like some cush, some conditioning, but then I feel like it just doesn't last very long. I mean, it doesn't last long without a gloss anyway, but then it fades even faster. So if if you are looking for a lip product that has that really wearable, soft blurred finish, then I do think that this is beautiful. It's just not for me. We had one more blurred matte launch that I had to include in this video because of how viral it went on TikTok. This is the NYX Smushy Matte Lip Balm. This claims to be a smushy, soft tinted lip balm that delivers a plush blurred effect and a trendy soft matte finish. Ingredient highlights include shea butter, ceramide NP, and rice powder, and this is available in 12 shades. I originally picked up this is backwards. This one, which is called Squeeze and Sizzle and is described as a cherry red. They say it's supposed to smell like cherry pie, but I don't know, man. This smells like a fall candle to me. It's not bad, it's just kind of strange for a lip product, and it's strong. And every shade has its own unique scent, so when I was reading through the other options, I was like, dang, I should have done something else because so many of these scents sound amazing. After trying this, I wanted to try something that was a little bit lighter in pigment, so I also picked up the shade Swipe Sesh. This is described as a light dusty rose. I would say that this is like a cool toned pink, and this is supposed to smell like berries and cream, which it absolutely does, and I really like the smell of this. These have such a unique texture. They really do feel smushy. It's like a whipped silicone moussey texture all at once. I definitely think that these are smoother and more comfortable than both CoverGirl and Versed. They're a little bit thicker as well, but they're not super plush or conditioning, so it's the kind of thing where I'm like, I don't feel like this is drying out my lips, but my lips feel a little bit dry when it's on because it's just not super conditioning. This also has a blurred soft matte finish, and the pigment is quite buildable, like especially in this deeper shade, you can get this to really pop and look saturated on the lips. But the issue I have with that is I feel like it starts to go patchier the more I try to build it. Like it just becomes more difficult to get even pigment. So I definitely prefer how this looks with just a tiny bit of product spread all over my lips. It not only makes it more wearable, but then it makes it more even in pigment as well. These last pretty well on me. I do think that they can kind of get like, you know, when they like gather into a line in the center of your lips. That definitely starts to happen with these, especially if they're layered up, but I don't have any major issues with the way that these wear. Overall, I think that these are really cute. Like the packaging is really cute, the colors, the scents, if you don't get the fall candle smelling one. It's definitely a fun way to do this kind of product, and like I said, feels better than both CoverGirl and Versed. I think looks better than CoverGirl for sure, and it gives you a bit more flexibility than Versed because you can get more pigment with it than that. So out of the three, I do think that this is the winner. It's just not something I feel like I need in my life. I don't know. Next up, we have the e.l.f. Tinted Lip Balm Drop. This is their Glow Reviver Melting Lip Balm, which is described as a rich, buttery balm that delivers a wash of buildable color, high shine gloss, and a boost of hydration for soft, nourished lips. Ingredient highlights include jojoba oil, mango butter, cocoa butter, shea butter, meadow foam seed oil, and hyaluronic acid. This launched in 6 shades, which I feel are all pretty vibrant on my skin tone. I'm obviously extremely fair, so that really makes any color look more intense than it would if you have deeper skin. But the first is Strawberry Shortcake, which is a warm peachy pink. The second is Vanilla Toffee, which is a very warm beigey brown. I feel like this one looks kind of orange on me. Then we have Wild Cherry, which is a bright pinky red. Yummy Gummy, which is a deep plum. Blackberry Sorbet, which is a deep burgundy. And Java Chip, which is a dark brown. Every shade name is supposed to be what the flavor of it is, what it tastes and smells like. And I will say that they do all have like the essence of that, but they also just, I don't know, they smell a bit artificial and plasticky to me. It's not awful. I've definitely smelled and tasted worse in a lip product. There's just something that's like a little bit off about them to me. I really love how these feel though. They have a very soft, creamy, balmy texture that is in between thin and thick. They feel very nourishing and moisturizing, especially for something that's not super thick. I feel like a lot of the times, like I need a thicker product for it to actually feel moisturizing on my lips, but these definitely deliver that. They have beautiful shine. You can really build these up to just look super nice and reflective, and they last well for me. So overall, as someone that has tested an insane amount of lip products, lip balms specifically, I actually think that these are really nice. It's just that the shades are all a miss for me personally. So if you can find a shade that you love, definitely give it a go. I think you'll really enjoy the texture, but until they launch some new shades that I find to be a bit more wearable, won't be a staple for me. When I saw that Naturium was dropping a shimmery version of their lip balm, I was so excited. This is their new Phyto Glow Lip Balm Shimmer, which they say is a nourishing, sparkling lip balm formulated with geodiamond pearls to leave your lips soft and shimmering. But the finish is not the only thing they updated. Elsie. with this formula. They also added a doe foot applicator. If you're not familiar with the original packaging of this lip balm, it has just like a normal squeezy tube applicator, but that has definitely been a common complaint for people because the formula itself is so thick that it makes it kind of difficult to squeeze out. So this was definitely a really exciting update. The ingredient highlights in this lip balm include shea butter, squalane, capachu seed butter, and castor oil. And this new finish, the shimmer, is available in 6 shades. The first is Stardust, which is a sheer frosted baby pink. The second is Eclipse, which is a baby fuchsia. Supernova is an iridescent rose. Cosmic is a pearlescent peachy pink. Orbit is a nude mauve. And Galaxy is a mulled wine. And I would say that all of them have sheer to light levels of pigment. So you can definitely feel the glitter in these a little bit, both when you initially apply them and when you rub your lips together. It's not enough to feel super uncomfortable for me or bother me in a major way, but that is definitely something I wanted to call out because I know that that's a deal breaker for a lot of people. What's more strange to me about this is the finish, because they still look super glossy like the original formula does. I love that gloss. I just don't see shimmer with this. And the whole point of this launch was the shimmery finish, and then obviously adding the doe foot, but I'm like, to create an entire shimmer line within your lip balm range and then have it not look shimmery, I was definitely bummed about that. I do really love some of these new shades though, so I'll probably keep it anyway, because again, like, I love the glossy look. It's just, it didn't quite deliver what I was expecting it to, based on that, again, being the whole point of this launch. Okay, I had 3 more lip products I wanted to include in this video, but as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, that was a lot that we just went through. And as it always goes with these kinds of videos, right as I was wrapping up preparing for it and ready to sit down and film it, all of these new products dropped, like the e.l.f. lip and cheek stains, the CoverGirl stains, the new e.l.f. mascara. Naturium actually came out with another lip balm formula, this time with sunscreen. There was a new L'Oreal Skin Ink Foundation Concealer, just a lot more that I was really interested in testing that I know I want to review for you guys. So I'm thinking that I'll save those last 3 lip products for the next video and then just post it sooner than I normally would have for a new at the drugstore, because I feel like I'll typically space them out a few months apart. But because we just seem to have a lot more new launches than we usually do, I'll definitely post that sooner than usual so I can let you guys know my thoughts on all of those fun new launches too. And I don't mean to race out of here, but I have a puppy who just woke up and needs to go potties outside. So thank you guys so much for watching. I love the freaking heck out of you. Stay tuned for my next one. And I gotta get him outside. Okay, bye. Love you.